Oh, uh, so basically the dependencies are injected at runtime. I mean, the in the source code we don't have to really take care of handling them.
Yes, yes,
So
absolutely. What is the benefit you get?
loosely coupled code.
Yes, yes, awesome. Great, great. Yes. So here, in a complex application, object creation or instantiation is always complicated step, right? So object by themselves take care of their creation. We generally create objects using constructor, but in enterprise applications, you a lot of times require some pre-processing, some initializations and configuration for the objects which you are instantiating. So dependency injection is a design pattern which is taking care of injecting the dependencies externally. So here you get loose coupling, and generally the instantiation of the objects is taken care by some external entity, in this case the container. The bean container Spring Boot has, or Spring Framework has a Spring container which will take care of instantiating the objects. Right? Understood?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So yes, just a minute. Let me bring in my content also, so that we can start covering these details. Okay, so we discussed about dependency injection. Then another term is inversion of control. So anyone knows what it is?
Is it same as dependency injection in a way, Arun? Because the control uh, is
Yes,
taken
yes,
care by the container, uh, not the source code. We don't have to
yes.
really worry about that.
Correct, correct. Yes, we achieve dependency injection using the inversion of control, or yes, these are both referring to the same thing. So these are some of the basics, but yes, no. Now my next question is Spring Framework does this, but yes, you had something called Java EE Enterprise Application. Why Spring gained so much of popularity over the? So this is a standard. So this was a standard. It's a industry standard, Java EE, or now Jakarta EE. Spring Framework was an open source project, right? Anyone knows who created Spring Framework? So Spring Framework was created by a small organization, and the name of the organization, which right now it is acquired by VMware. So Spring Framework is although an open source project, but this is acquired by VMware, or it's an initiative from VMware. The originally it was developed, I'm just trying to recall that company which originally developed VMware. I'll share that later, that's not that important. But yes, we should know that yes, this is some initiative which was open source. And basically earlier, if you have to create enterprise applications, so the way which people used to do was they create servlets, JSPs, JSF, and there were a lot of technologies. Even now you have Jakarta MVC, right? These are the options which is for creating front end based applications. Then you have session beans, then you have entity beans, message oriented beans, MDBs, message driven beans, right? Now next thing what I am asking is, which is very important question. Okay, again there are few more things which, because you will need integration with the database. So JPA, Java Persistence APIs. So JPA was there, even JDBC and various other approaches were there to connect to the database. So you had already all these facilities and frameworks for creating this. But why Spring was so much of popular? Primary reason is simplicity. All these technologies were very complicated. You have to do lot of coding, boilerplate coding, and it was difficult to learn, and barrier to entry was there for new developers. It was hard to learn and master these technologies. Spring was easier to do. Although these technologies also were having containers, they did dependency injection, inversion of control, etc. But still, Spring was preferred. Now, any other inputs why Spring is preferred?
The application context that kind of creates and maintains the bean life cycle, which is very easy. It is lightweight, and then testing is easier as well.
Yes, right, absolutely. So yeah, there are many points, but most important thing is Spring framework was popular because of simplicity, right? Same, there was another framework which was called Hibernate. This was for database, or this we can call object relational mapping. This was again a open source project, and this got popular. And also same, this was a kind of good combination, Spring and Hibernate. These skills started to become very high demand skills, and the primary reason was simplicity. Now, how is the simplicity achieved in Spring framework? This is what we will be understanding. So we discussed that okay, Spring provides the inversion of control, dependency injection, but what it is exactly? A Spring framework, what do we mean by framework? So Spring framework is a collection of libraries, right? And tools. Definitely tools are there, and this is what it is meant by framework. Framework is basically collection of libraries and tools, and it provides lots of features. It is comprehensive model, and it provides not only dependency injection, it provides many other features. So let me list down these. So we have aspect oriented programming. Let me increase the size because maybe for you guys it would be harder to read. So you have something called aspect oriented programming, right? Anyone knows about aspect oriented programming? You would have heard about something called aspect J.
Yeah. Um, so basically, it's uh, separation of the like logs and security related code.
Yes,
If
yes,
we want to keep them in a different place,
yes,
so basically there is something. I remember there was something called Aspect J.
yes,
So we
yes,
used to
absolutely.
kind of, yeah.
Correct, correct.
Um,
Yes. So, what was the primary reason why this concept or technology was invented?
is it separation of concerns? That's the word. I mean, something like
Uh-huh. Uh, Not exactly. Separation of concerns you can get by object oriented design as well. Right? Correct. By modularizing also you can get separation of concerns. But what is aspect oriented programming? Now let me give you, yeah, this is very interesting thing. You should try it out. And this is also very well implemented in Spring. And there is a book also on aspect oriented programming. For modifying or extending a code, how can you do it? How can we modify and extend the code? Right? Basically, we extend the code by adding more code in between our existing code, right? So, aspect oriented programming is that without touching the existing code, can we modify the behavior of our existing code? So, to get more extensibility and maintainability, this aspect oriented programming approach was created. Yeah, so to certain extent, yes, you were right. There were separation of concerns. That means that I
yeah,
am
I was
modifying.
I forgot the word. It was cross-cutting concerns.
Yes, absolutely right. Yes, you got it now right. That cross-cutting concerns are these features which you need in your code, and you need it in every code, but for that you have to add lot of stuff and in between the business logic. So I'll give an example. Say assume you have a code which does some financial transaction. So you have a business logic, maybe credit and debit from some account, and no checking the balance, etc. So this is a financial code, and this has a business logic. Now in enterprise environment, you would like to do the performance monitoring. So you may want to capture know what is the performance of this function. So you will add some code here to do some performance analysis, right? You will collect some matrices, maybe you say set time millis or get time millis, and then you compare how many milliseconds you took, and you subtract and you maybe log the information. You may also have some exception handling. See, lot of technical code you are injecting into the business logic. You may be also logging errors, logging important events. So you'll be adding log of lots of messages. You are also adding lot of code in your business logic. And finally, what you get is a spaghetti of different kinds of code, which is your code for handling the business transactions, plus code for performance analysis, probably code for error handling, code for logging. And this becomes hard to maintain. But aspect oriented programming is an approach in which, without injecting any code in between a method, you can modify the behavior of the method, right? This is very interesting actually. So I would recommend, yes, no, there could be a separate session on aspect oriented programming, because this is a technology which can be applied in core Java as well. And Aspect J is a tool or library using which you can do aspect oriented programming. But yes, the main idea is for modifying any behavior of the code, you have to inject code in between to give additional functionality. But what if you can, without modifying, externally do something, and based on that external code your existing function can be modified? This will be very useful because you have code which is very focused, and then all these cross-cutting concerns like performance analysis, logging, error handling, etc. and etc. There could be many more things could be taken care externally and without creating a spaghetti out of your code. So that's one other feature, right? So dependency injection, aspect oriented programming. What else? Right, so yeah, definitely there are a lot of features like data access. So Spring, you can connect to various data sources. It could be file based data sources, it could be different kinds of SQL, NoSQL bases. You can do transactional code, right? You can do transaction management in Spring, because which is very important in enterprise applications. Then you can do validations, right? Whenever you are doing some creation of services or creation of UI, whenever you have data entry, it's very important that you validate. So Spring has a framework for validation. It has framework for internationalization. I'll write it down as I18N, which stands for internationalization. It is good for developing web based applications, and it is so these are various features, and there are many more features. So maybe I can't keep listing because there are maybe 50 plus such features which Spring provide, and they provide in a very simple manner, a manner which is very developer friendly and makes the developers very productive, and code is also robust and scalable. So that's the reason this technology Spring is widely used, and it can be used to create complex applications and is being used by many organizations. So I would say that Spring skill set is highest in the highest highest demand is in highest demand across all the industries, right? Because Spring can integrate with other tools and frameworks as well. So there is something called Spring integration. So let's talk about more about the benefits of Spring. Other benefit, yeah, this is also a benefit, that it is open source, so it has a large community, right? So this is something, right? So if things become popular, automatically there is a community, and then you get lot of documentation and support for using this technology. And the same time, it has lots of libraries and frameworks, because as more people started using it, more people started extending it also, and it started including more and more frameworks and libraries. And it's very easily testable, because there are libraries available for testing Spring. So the testability of code is also good, and it is designed using principles of dependency injection, aspect oriented programming. So the code is also very well maintainable, and the code is also easily testable. But yes, let's talk about now what all frameworks Spring contains. So important frameworks which you should remember is Spring Batch, Spring Security, and Spring Cloud. These are something which we will be covering. I will be moving to the hands-on exercise soon. But yes, we are just listing down some of the important libraries or tools which are there included in part of Spring framework. And then Spring MVC, Spring uh, integration, right? So these are various frameworks which are there. There may be some more, but yes, let me know if I missed out any of important framework. But these are, I would say, the most commonly used frameworks which are required for building any enterprise applications. Anyone have used any of these frameworks or has used anything which is outside these, because there are many such framework. So this is a long list. I'll share the complete list also, and also how to find out this list. This is also very easy. So let's see what all these frameworks are quickly. Spring Data is for integration with databases. So this is, I would say, data access. Spring Batch, any guesses what it would be doing?
Batch processing.
Batch processing. And what is batch processing?
It chunks the data and processes if it is huge.
Yes, yes, absolutely right. See, there are two kinds of processes. One is, it is transactional, or it is real-time processing. That means you process the data in real time as and when it comes. Batch processing is a classic example is payroll. So if you have a module which is responsible for payroll processing, it will not keep running every day. It will run on the 1st of the month or 31st of the previous month and will process the salary, and the salary will get transferred only once in a month. So this is an example of batch processing, because salary of all the thousands of employees, they will be processed, and definitely it will be processed in one process as a single job, and this will take long, and it will be done in maybe on 31st of every month or 30th of every month. There may be some job which will be running for multiple hours, and as a result of it, salaries of all the employees will get transferred, right? So these kinds of jobs are called batch processing jobs. And when you are purchasing any item from Amazon, these are transactional job or real-time processing, because you place an order and then order is processed and is delivered, and this processing happens in real time, right? But what if some other example of batch processing is BB Daily, right? Sometimes Amazon also uses batch processing. If they want to club multiple orders and ship them as one order, then that could be a batch processing. So they may be collecting all the orders and they will be putting it in the queue, and then there will be a batch job will be running, and when the queue has considerable size, orders will be processed. So this is again an example of batch processing. In BB Daily, okay, or Big Basket, right? Everyone is ordering, and then all the orders are placed in the queue, and then on the day when the delivery has to happen, all these orders will be processed, and there will be a mini truck containing all the orders will go and deliver the items. Or in the early morning, the delivery of milk packets, etc. will happen. Vegetables or what you have subscribed for will be delivered. These are all examples of batch processing. So this framework is for doing batch processing. Then there is Spring Security, which is a security feature which is used for implementing security in your applications. Right, so this is all Spring Cloud. Spring Cloud provides tools to quickly build distributed systems which can run on cloud. So this is about building distributed systems. Now, Spring integration is about integrating with other platforms, right? Say, for example, if you have code written in Ruby, Python, Spring integration framework is a framework with the help of which you can integrate. It provides adapters to integrate with various technologies. And then now I'll ask, any guesses what is Spring MVC?
Model view controller.
Yeah, model view controller. It is used for building web applications using MVC pattern, which is model view controller pattern. Right. Now, yeah, there is another framework also which is called WebFlux. I just recall it because this again for building web applications, but this is an alternate to MVC, Spring MVC. Right? So you not only get lot of frameworks, libraries, you also have lot of alternates also, because the UI technology is constantly evolving. So the first one is using model view controller pattern. Other one is kind of a reactive web framework. Now, why I'm talking about this, because this is also very important concept. What is reactive application development? Anyone? This has nothing to do with React.js and all. Reactive application development is slightly different. Anyone have any idea about what it is?
It's supposed like asynchronous web, integration with any other.
Yes. Can you elaborate further? What is asynchronous?
There's no blocking call. We can just fire the request.
Absolutely right. Yeah, nice. Absolutely. This is non-blocking. So how can you have non-blocking call? How do you process non-blocking or asynchronous request? Right, so you make a call and then forget. Right, you proceed doing something else. But how will you process the response in this case? Because now you don't know what was the request and which is the response, corresponding response. Maybe you have requested 10 different things. How will you process this? You'll process this using events, right? So this is another important thing. This is also known as event-driven application development, right? So this is not like message queues, that is different, but here also there is event-driven application development, or you can say reactive application development, which means you will have callbacks and events, right? So basically you have events and callbacks. People who are doing JavaScript development, they know about callbacks and events, because JavaScript has a lot of events and callbacks, and UI processing in the browser happens with events and callbacks. So something like that in UI development is called reactive web application development. You can also do reactive backend development also, and this pattern is also used in front end as well as back end. Now my other question is, what is the advantage of reactive web application? Yeah, you said all this, but basically what's the advantage? What do you get of doing all this? Non-blocking, asynchronous request, if you send, what do you get? loose coupling, maintainability, right? You can do parallel development and implement various modules. You get more flexibility in development. You can modularize your code, and it's easy to maintain and flexible, right? Can anyone tell why event based development or event driven application development is more maintainable? With example, can anyone tell? If you don't have events, then you will have to have the logic to process, and maybe the similar logic, if you have to apply in multiple places, you have to duplicate the code. So there is lot of interconnection between the code, right? Maybe through calls of functions, or one function calling other. These are all dependencies. But in event driven code, you'll just be raising an event, and that event multiple methods can be listening to, and then when it occurs, you may call callback function. So it becomes the code very understandable and easy to organize and maintain, right? Now let's get into some practical concepts. So this is the site I would recommend you should go. This is how you can start building your Spring applications, because now we have talked about enough concepts. But yes, if we talk about this start.spring.io, this is kind of a tool which can help you to build any project very fast, right? So now you see here, there are a lot of other details also which you can gain from this site. This site is for creating projects, and you don't need to have anything installed in your system to start developing in Spring. Maybe if you just have any IDE, which could be Eclipse, or which could be IntelliJ Community Edition, or NetBeans, that is sufficient to start building Spring application. Or even Visual Studio Code you can use. But here is how you generate project. First, you choose what is the build technology we'll use. So you can use Gradle. Now Gradle, you see, also supports Kotlin. So you have Gradle with Groovy, which is the classic combination. If anyone has used Gradle as the build manager, they'll understand Groovy, and they will also understand Kotlin, right? Now tell me, what is Groovy? Anyone having idea about what is Groovy?
It's a programming language. Groovy is a programming language which is very similar to Java.
Yeah, okay. But the name is different. Why? Yes. What is the reason behind why? So yeah, it is a Java based language. That's correct. It can run on JVM. But the language syntax is not similar to Java, but it's more similar to another language which is rhyming with this Groovy word. Yeah, which programming language rhymes exactly similar as Groovy? Ruby, right? Groovy is a language which is kind of, right, they implemented something similar to Ruby in Java. And there is Ruby on Rails, people would have heard of. This is again a very popular web development framework. There's something called Groovy on Rails, which is a Java implementation of Ruby on Rails. But yes, it is also used in writing build scripts, and which is what is being done in Gradle here in Groovy. So this is classically, Groovy was supported in Gradle, but now Gradle is also supporting Kotlin language. Kotlin is another language which can run on JVM. And then you have Maven. So you can use anything. We can choose Maven if you are all familiar with Maven. But yes, do let me know. You can choose whichever tool you want. Next thing is, for programming, Spring is not only limited to Spring language. Spring is not only limited to Java language. You can use Spring framework and code in Kotlin and Groovy as well. Right? So it supports multiple programming languages. But yes, both Kotlin, Groovy, Java, all these languages, they run on JVM. So you need a JVM, and all the languages are Java based language. Does anyone know any other Java based language other than these three? And it's a functional programming language.
Scala?
Yeah, Scala. Yeah, Scala is another programming language. But yes, as of now, Spring does not support Scala. But yes, these are the languages which are Java based, and you should know about it. And the latest version is 3.0.5 or 3.0. And the next version which will be coming out is 3.1 for the Spring Boot. Right? So this we are talking about Spring Boot. Now let's talk about what is a Spring and Spring Boot. Yeah, we missed out this part because this is what we are creating a project for Spring Boot. What is difference between Spring and Spring Boot?
Spring Boot basically gives us a project which is runnable, and with all the dependencies, everything in place, the code, the basic code in place.
Yes, right. So with boot, what does we mean? Boot is about getting started, bootstrapping. Boot is taken from the word bootstrapping. So Spring Boot helps you quickly bootstrap your development for the Spring based application. Right? So this is Spring Boot. Spring Boot is nothing, it is just a wrapper on top of Spring so that you can do simplified development. Right? It simplifies the development. So coming back here to the Spring Initializer, I choose the stable version, most recent stable version of Spring Boot. I can create the project metadata. We can say what is the group. So let's put com.example. example. You can put some app which is whatever is the name of your artifact, say library, or no, maybe if you are building some microservice, you can give some microservice name, say for example payroll. This is basically name of your project, and then description of the project. Right? So here you can say payroll, or let's say we are building some bookstore. Right? So we call it bookstore. The name of the artifact, that means the jar deployable. Right? This is jar. Name of the project, which is bookstore, and we can just say bookstore project. Right? And in Spring Boot and all, yeah, you don't need to put in description the implementation detail, but yes, this is your description. You can give a package name, and you can choose packaging, which is jar and var, and you can choose the Java version also, 2017, 11 or 8. It supports various Java version. Now once you have this project data defined, you need to add dependencies, because now you have to see what kind of project which you would like to create, right? So for example, maybe I am building a web project, right? So I see here there are options Spring Web or Spring Reactive Web. If you are building a web service using GraphQL, you can choose this also. Or if you are building RESTful services, you can choose REST repositories. So you have a lot of frameworks. We'll be covering Spring and Spring HTOS in the next session, where we will be building RESTful web services. But today, just I'm giving you an overview so that you have good understanding and we can get started by building applications. So you have so many services. You have template engines as well. It support mustaches, time, life. There are free marker. These are various templating engine. Then there are security related libraries. So you see here a lot of libraries. Spring Security, OAuth client library. This is the backend library, and LDAP, Okta. So these are various libraries available for implementing various security features. Similarly, you have for SQL different kinds of frameworks. MyBit is again a very popular framework. JDBC is also supported. Spring Data JPA, etc. is also supported. So you have a long list of libraries, sometimes specific to a particular database also. Say for example, Oracle, Postgres. So if I choose to develop an application which works with the Postgres database, I can choose this, or Oracle database, or any other database. I can choose the relevant library. So let's say our application wants to work with Postgres. I'll choose this. I will also say that okay, our bookstore application is a web application, and I would use RESTful web services also, and I'll use MVC pattern. So I may add this also. See here, Spring Web is added, Spring Postgres SQL is added. I will also plan to implement some security features. So I'll add Spring Security as well. Like this, I can add what all I need in my application, right? So if I need multiple features, I can choose that many libraries. So I have chosen the database technology as well. I can choose other stuff. Say for example, if I want to integrate with Kafka, I can choose that. But yes, as of now I don't want, so I just ignore, but I'm showing this just for your reference. Or if you want to use WebSockets, we can build WebSocket based application using this library. And this is a Spring Batch, which we discussed few minutes back. So all our libraries are available. If we want to implement validation, this is about the database validation, model validation, we can choose this. If we want to send emails through our application, then there is a library. Scheduler is also there here. These are all we should understand are the design time dependencies, right? So if I choose say Postgres, this means I have just included the Postgres design time dependency. In runtime, I definitely need to install the Postgres database, then only my application will work. So you see here, this is observability or monitoring features. So it has integration with different monitoring tools like Datadog. See, so much of flexibility and so much of libraries are available. So it kind of makes you that this tool is very convenient for building any kind of applications. Even complex application I can create by just including these relevant libraries, and then I need to use these APIs, and then I'll get the application working with minimal effort. right? So this is about Spring Cloud. Here we have configuration, we have other features as well. Console is a service discovery framework, right? So we discussed about the service discovery in our session on microservices pattern. We had a session on microservices architecture pattern where we discussed about service discovery and service registration, etc. And then yes, you have other features as well. So a lot of features: cloud bus, cloud stream, and this integration with Azure, integration with Google Cloud. So you can choose based on what is appropriate for your application. Now, having selected all this, but yes, for us this should be sufficient for starting. Now you can click on generate.
So Tarun, a very basic question here.
Yes.
So this is something that we are planning to build on Spring Boot.
Yes.
If I don't want to use the boot thing on just the normal Spring, would it be the same way to have it just the Spring, not the boot?
Yes. Now most of the time people use Spring Boot. Yes. Because Spring Boot gives you predefined configuration. So it includes most of the configuration as default settings. So most of the industry best practices are included in Spring Boot as default configurations. But there is a disadvantage, which is you may get some configuration which is not required for you, and you lose some flexibility, right? So you may get something additional code and less flexibility. But yes, if you want to create Spring, now this is one convenient way using web tool. But yes, no, this is also not a must for creating Spring Boot application. You can just create this using an IDE. So now this is what I am showing you now.
Okay.
If you click on generate, you get the project generated without using any ID, without installing anything on your system. This is just for convenience. But if you click on explore, this will show you the code it is going to generate. So when I click on explore, you see what is it generating is pom.xml, because I have chosen Maven. Yes. So source code is nothing, it's just the basic code structure, right? So here you can see my entire structure of the applications created. I named the package com.example.bookstore, and I named the application as bookstore application. So that's why this class bookstore application is created. This is the entry point of my application. And I have this application properties file, which is the properties for my application. This is empty. Other way is you can create this structure manually or using an IDE. That is another way using which you can include Spring libraries or Spring Boot. You can do the Spring Boot development, or Spring, just plain Spring application you can create using adding the dependencies in the library and creating a Java project.
Got it.
Yes, so both the approaches is possible, and I also discussed what are the advantage and disadvantage of each of the approach. Here you can get started very easily because it's just few clicks and few searches. Otherwise, if you know manually, maybe you have to add all these dependencies manually, right? So you see here I have added some dependencies in this, which is what we selected. We selected Spring Web. So this is the Spring Web dependency. We selected Spring Security. So this is the Spring Security dependency. We selected Postgres. So Postgres is also selected, right? So we get the Maven plugin. This is for building the project, and yeah, this is for security, Spring security. So there are dependencies, appropriate dependencies added automatically. So it is creating this POM file for us, and also the default project structure. So this is called what's this called? Creating the structure of the project. There's a technical term for this. This is called scaffolding, right? Scaffolding is creating the basic structure, right? Scaffolding is a general term. When you create a building, what you create is you have to put the scaffolding, right? Something like this. When you create a building, when you create a wall or some structure, you have to create this scaffolding. So what we have done the scaffolding for our Spring project, and this is what it has done. It has created the scaffolding. Now you will add the business logic. Your application is ready. So what if you are satisfied with this, you can download this as a zip file in your desktop and open it with any IDE and to get started, right? Or if you want to further modify it, you can go back and you can select more libraries, appropriately modify it, and then download or generate this particular project. So clear with this? Then yeah, I would advise you all guys to also be ready with the IntelliJ IDEA IDE. This is what I will be using for to demonstrate creating the web application. Right, so appropriately you can download Community Edition. This is sufficient. But yes, you can also download 30-day trial edition also. This is also good for learning, and with this you will get most of the advanced features. You get the feature comparison also in this particular table, so you can choose what you want to download. Here the difference is, if you get the Community Edition, you get the simple IDE. But if you download the Ultimate Edition, you get debugging tools, better debugging tools. So you have Spring profiling, and you got support for many frameworks. You get client also, database tools as well, remote development tool, lot of other additional tools which you get. So this is advantage or difference between IntelliJ Ultimate and IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition. So yeah, if you are satisfied, then you generate, and this will download a project as a zip file in your desktop, and then you can open the IDE and start developing, adding business logic to this code. I'll take 5 more minutes because we will generate this project and will run this project, so that this will cover one entire flow for application development, and then we will start start modifying the code and adding additional capabilities in the next class. So there we will discuss this in more detail. So now I have downloaded this code. I clicked on generate, so it generated and downloaded the zip file in my desktop, And in the meantime, I will also open the IntelliJ IDE idea. IntelliJ IDEA IDE, which is I have the Ultimate Edition. Correct. So now let me show you my IDE. Okay, close. So yeah, this is my IDE, and I have to download. I have to now open. I have some other project open, but I'll open the project which I recently downloaded. So I'll go to open and just choose the folder which I just downloaded. So you have to extract that folder. I've done this already in in my desktop, and now I have opened the project. So this is called Bookstore 2 because I already downloaded once earlier with the same name, so that's why it has now created Bookstore 2. But yeah, for you it should be, if you follow the same steps as I was doing, you will be getting Bookstore as the name, and then you just have to say trust project, because this is something the ID recognizes that this is downloaded. So if you trust, then it will open this project. So it's opening, and I can choose, I want in this window itself the new project to be open. So it will close the existing project and it will open the new project. So this is very intuitive ID, you would all be familiar with, but yes, you can download and install. In few minutes you will get the IDE running on your system. And see, exactly the same thing is what you are getting here, right? So we saw that in pom.xml, whatever code which created, we have it here, right? So this project name, project description, and our dependencies which we chose, which is security, Spring Web, Postgres, etc. Now next thing is, you will see here the class which is Bookstore application. It has the code already, some code which is, there is a main method. It's like a simple core Java class. So Bookstore application is your code which will have the entry point for your execution. Let's execute this to see what we got. We can just click on this run button. It will build, compile and run it. But yes, you should understand that we are building an enterprise application. We are not building a console application. So we need a web server. So this main is wrapping the Tomcat web server or even the application server. Tomcat is Tomcat web server. Tomcat is initialized in port 8080, it's saying. And it started the service Tomcat service. And let's see what is there in this. So I go to localhost 8080. Yeah, see here. So this is where my Tomcat application container is running, and I got the application running. This is coming from the Spring Boot. Since I have added Spring Security, so I get this username and password form also implemented for me, right? Because we selected the Spring Security. So this is the starting point of our application, what we got. Yeah. So here, if you see here, So there is a password also which is generated, and it's shown here, right? So the generate password is this one. So I can enter, and I can enter here, and sorry, just username for Spring Security. It should be user, I believe. So yes, I will put user as the username, and password is the password, and then we don't have any code, so it just comes inside. There's nothing here, so this is what is expected. But you see here, you got so simply in few steps a complete working application, right? So you got the application running, Tomcat running, and in just one click of button, you don't have to install Tomcat, because this all is included in the zip file which we just downloaded. And you can you can also get the generated password here, which you can use to log into your application, and when you will write code, this will be authenticated application. Internally it's using servlet, right? So you see here there's a dispatcher servlet, but then what is being shown to you is just like a void main method, which is like normal core Java application. Any questions, queries? Am I still in the call?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Um,
Great. Awesome. So this is all I have for today. I'll close the session here. Maybe next time we'll go into more development. We'll start adding more business logic. But yes, in this session, I gave you the overview and I get you started with Spring coding.
okay, one small thing.
Listen, whenever we want to develop any Spring Boot application, right? So this is the way. Like first we
Yes.
do this Spring initializer and
Yes.
generate the code, and then we'll open with the IDE,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Either
Absolutely.
Eclipse or IntelliJ, and
Correct.
so if you have Eclipse also, is the process same? Or-
Yes. Absolutely same. Right?
Okay.
So you build from Spring initializer, and then you open it in the ID. Now another thing is, yes, if you have a good ID which supports Spring, for example, I have this IntelliJ. I can create a project, and everything I can do, Spring initializer is also integrated here. So I can directly create from here also, because they have integrated it in the IDE, right? So same options you see is available. So even in some of the IDs, you may not even have to go to the website. You can do it from new project, right? So here I can, without going to the website, do this. But yes, how will I add the required dependencies? Yeah, when you do next, it will give you the option to choose the dependencies, right? So when I do next, it shows me in a different manner these dependencies, right? So if I have to add, say, security, then I can get this and this. But yes, this is integrated in my IDE also, and I can also look into the documentation, etc., and descriptions about it. Great. So there are multiple approaches, or you can write by yourself also the structure manually also. Go ahead.
The best IDE to use, is it IntelliJ?
IntelliJ, yes, IntelliJ IDE is the best IDE to use.
One small thing. I choose the Java version 11 when I was building the project.
Correct.
I don't have Java 17, but it is showing me the project structure that I'm using it. It is the JDK 11 basically. But while I'm compiling this project, it is telling me invalid target release 17. I don't think I have
Yes.
anywhere installed 17. Even in my project structure, I have selected the JDK version 11.
Yes.
Not sure why it is coming. I need to
Yes.
figure out
Yes.
that.
See in the POM XML.
Okay.
So yeah, when you select Java version, it will come here.
Yes. Yeah. It.
So if
I
you
have
have
selected
select,
11.
yes, you
Yeah.
can
I
change
got
it,
it. Got it.
and
Yeah. Got it.
then it will start working, right? So yes,
Got it. Yeah.
uh,
It is 17 there, but I selected 11 there. Not sure
correct,
why.
correct. So but yes, either you can update your version,
Yeah.
Java version, or you
Got it.
can modify this. Both will work.
Yeah. It is working now. Great. Thank
Awesome.
you. So if I just need to have not the boot one, just simple, because we are not using the boot Spring Boot, we're
Yeah.
using simple Spring.
Yes.
So the annotation that's being used on the bookstore application, it is Spring Boot application at the moment. So
Yes.
it would be simple Spring context, something like that, right?
Correct, correct, correct. Yes, absolutely. So slight differences is there. See, Spring Boot is not a single annotation. This is a collection of annotation, and
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is for convenience. They have enclosed multiple annotations in a single annotation,
Yeah.
right? So we'll cover in detail now the syntax in the next session. Right, maybe next
Yeah.
Saturday or whenever I will find opportunity to do another session, we can have
Great.
it, and there we can get inside the coding aspect and know code and build something which is good amount of functionality, maybe some database integration, and also I'll also cover, there are a lot of things to cover, it's a very vast topic. We will cover RESTful services, how to build RESTful services. We'll create microservices, and we will also cover some approaches of defining microservices, which could be domain driven development.
That's very nice. Yeah.
But yes, these are the few topics which I'm planning to cover. Maybe it will take 2 session or 3 session. Yes.
Okay.
Right. But yes, in 1 or 2 sessions, in few weeks, we'll cover all of these.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Nice. Great.
This was a wonderful session. A lot of things to learn.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. See you then.
It was
Have
a
a
very
nice
nice session.
Great. Nice. Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
Bye.
Have a nice.
Yes,
nice
I'll
day.
share the notes and probably also share the steps for you. And anytime if you face any issues, just feel free to share it in the chat in the group, and then I'll see if there is some solution possible, or we can discuss that. Right? No
Sure.
issues. Awesome. Great. See you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank
Have
you.
a nice
See you
day.
here.
Thank you. Bye.